All right, so we're back here for our last poem of the Fireside Poets. And I know I say this about all of them, but I think I like The Tide Rises, The Tide Falls. I like The First Snowfall. I like a lot of the poems we've done. I really like what this one is saying. The context of Burning Driftwood is such a cool one. Now, there are parts that I don't super like. I'm not super confident in my interpretation of, okay? One of the things you're going to learn about me, especially if you end up in an AP class at any point, is, well, that's next year. Let's say some of you try to bite off a big challenge and take that AP 12. One of the things you'll learn about with me with poetry interpretation is I'm not always super concerned about what the author intended. I'm not always super concerned about what other people think. I'm really like, when I read it, what I get out of it, okay? And I can usually support what I have to say. So as I go through this, I'm going to tell you what I think is going on and what it made me feel, because that's really what poetry is about. There's an emotional quality and an individualistic quality about poetry that you need to have. Now, you may get a totally different interpretation when you do this. In fact, if someone happens to stumble across this video and they're not one of my students, you may see this like, oh, he's completely wrong. And I want to stress that that's just, poetry is a personal thing, okay? I can teach you guys how I interpreted things, and if I was to read this again 2 months from now, maybe I'd have a completely different interpretation. But I do want you to understand that right and wrong, as far as this goes, is not always a thing, as long as you can back up where it came from and you can show in the wording, this is why I feel that way, okay? So obviously you can have a wrong interpretation if there's no basis for it, but that's not what we're dealing with, okay? So hopefully, that being said, as you watch me kind of go through this, it can give you some hope for if you were trying to do this, because this is really on like a third or fourth read for me. All right. And I've told you guys how much I love this poem. I'm basing that off a first read through. That's what makes me come back to a poem a second and third and fourth and fifth and 100th time, is that the first time I read it, for some reason, it resonates with me. And this one, man, if it ever, this one did. Okay. So let's go ahead and get to it. And enough of my meandering here. Let's look at Burning Driftwood. Again, I'm going to look at the poem here on my screen. It's not showing up on yours. I know how to screen share, but I would rather, you look at the screen on your own, because otherwise there's a little bit of a difference and a lag, and I don't want to fool with it. So it's Burning Driftwood by John Greenleaf Whittier. Of course, you know what driftwood is. Driftwood is like trash wood that's come out, usually out of the ocean, all right? So your task, again, in my class is to take these stanza by stanza. Now, for this one, since they are short stanzas, I'm going to let you combine some if you think they need to be. What I don't want is for you to overly simplify this, okay, because this poem is a little more complex, all right? Okay, let's get started. It says, before my driftwood fire I sit, and see with every waif I burn, old dreams and fancies coloring it, and folly's unlaid ghosts return. Now, a lot of times poetry, especially longer ones like this, can be slow getting going. This one doesn't. It lays out like what we're dealing with right away. The idea here is he's burning this trash from the ocean that's just left over from something. It's like he's burning his old dreams and old desires and all of the mistakes of his past. That's what this poem's dealing with, okay? Now, there is more towards the end, but right to start with is that. So he's going to compare, like, let's look at the second stanza. He says, oh, ships of mine, whose swift keels cleft the enchanted sea on which they sailed, are these poor fragments only left of vain desires and hopes that failed. So in this instance, what he's talking about is he's comparing his dreams and all these hopes he had to once upon a time these were ships. And then when ships, like when they crashed, and then the wood would float back to sea, it would often be driftwood. So he says all of these things that once he had believed in or once dreamed of are now just left in pieces. And he says, and it's even a question, he says, are these poor fragments only left of vain desires and hopes that failed? So he's saying all these things. I get this as a person who's getting older. I sit and think about all these dreams I had that, I've given up on. And it's not meant to be a depressing thing. It's just, I get the idea of sitting there and burning these pieces and realizing that, it's time to get these out of my life, all right, these old dreams and stuff, and to focus on what I have now. He says, did I not watch from them the light of sunset on my towers in Spain, and see far off upbloom in sight the fortune isles I might not gain? And as again, he's realizing these things that he had once wanted. He realizes, I may not ever get these now. And again, we look at this as like something depressing, like, oh man, my dreams didn't come true. Guys, most people's don't. All right. We talked about contentment yesterday. And one of the things is to find contentment in the life you have and be thankful for the things you have. And addressing this and understanding that, okay, I'm not going to become a rock star now. My dream growing up was to become a musician. And even if I didn't become like this big, like million platinum selling artist, $1 million platinum selling artist, the goal is just to play music all my life. Well, I'm just not that good. I love it. I have a passion for it. But that's why I have tons of records and CDs and listen to tons of music. But if I was still pushing that dream, it would be ridiculous at this point. So addressing this and saying it's okay, I can still enjoy this, but that door is shut now. He says, did sudden lift of fog reveal Arcadia's veils of song and spring? And did I pass with grazing keel the rocks whereon the sirens sing? And now we're getting a few allusions here that might be problematic. Of course, we've talked about the sirens in class, so you know that. Okay, so this one he's just talking about, all these areas he may have missed in his life. Okay, he says, have I not drifted hard upon the unmapped regions lost to man, the cloud-pitched tents of Prester John, the palace domes of Kublai Khan? Again, these are some allusions to other literary references. Okay, don't worry about these. When you're going and summarizing these, you don't have to worry about it. He's just talking about, this is where I would probably like combine a few of these stanzas as he's talking about all the areas that, he hasn't reached in his life. Did land winds blow from jasmine flowers where youth the ageless fountain fills? Did love make signs from rose-blown bowers and gold from El Dorado's hills? And you get the fountain of youth reference and El Dorado, the golden city reference here. Again, areas that are imaginary. It says, alas, the gallant ships that sailed on blind adventures Aaron sent, however they laid their courses, failed to reach the haven of content. Okay, again, and he's saying, no matter how great the promise was at the beginning, a lot of these ships never reach their destination historically, and it also applies back if we take ships as a parallel for dreams, that a lot of times our dreams, most of our dreams we have don't land. Okay, and that's okay. I want you guys to understand that not getting your dreams is okay. We should have dreams because they give us something to strive for, but we should also learn to be content with the areas we end up in. Okay, doesn't mean give up on your dreams, but at some point it's time to remap them. So then of my ventures, those alone which love had freighted safely sped, seeking a good beyond my own by clear-eyed duty piloted. Notice there's some slant rhymes here, or near rhymes, what we call them. Sped and piloted are not really the same. You have to say piloted. We saw it in one of the other ones too. And those are okay. All right, they're not a bad thing. So basically saying here that of the things that he had sought out, he has achieved a few. And again, for me and personally in my life, a lot of the dreams I had, the big ones that I didn't get, I've changed them to be more realistic with my situation now. But it's smaller things like wanting to get married. I'm married. I'm happily married. I have a wife that I've been with for, 18 years now. October 25th, just a couple of days ago, was 18 years since our first date. And yes, we mark our first date as well as our anniversary. We dated for 4 years before we got married, so there's a lot of time there. So so that did come true. I have children that I care about. That came true. I am able to take care of myself. I'm not dependent on my mother. That came true. I have tons of video games and records, things that I care about, hobbies that I've had since I was a kid, and I'm able to really indulge in those now. That came true. I'm not playing music for a living. That didn't. I'm not a college professor. That didn't. I'm not traveling around speaking and making $10,000 to just go and speak for an hour. That didn't happen. I haven't made a TED Talk that people watch and analyze. That didn't happen. But a lot of smaller things did, and I'm content and happy with those. That's kind of what he's talking about here. It says, oh, mariners, hoping still to meet the luck Arabian voyagers met and find in Baghdad's moonlit street Harun al-Rashid walking yet. I guarantee you I messed up that name. This is like when he says, oh, mariners, and there's a comma, he's talking to other people. Other people beginning their journey who have all these dreams, who still have all these, hopes and, fears and dreams all laid out in front of them. He's speaking to them. He says, take with you on your sea of dreams the fair, fond fancies dear to youth. I turn from all that only seems and seek the sober grounds of truth. It's the difference in being young and old. Right now, you guys at the ages of 16, 17 years old have so many options ahead of you. And then I look at my life at 42, and I have a lot fewer. I can't. A lot of my life is narrowing. You start with a real narrow life, and it goes up as you get more and more, and you get close to college. You have all these potential options, but then the longer you live, the more these narrow down more, and that's okay. All right, but enjoy the time you have and set those dreams and reach for it. But also know when it's time to focus on what you have, and when, like he says there, seek the sober grounds of truth. What matter that it is not May, that birds have flown and trees are bare, that darker grows the shortening day and colder blows the wintry air. Now, right now, he's playing with common symbols for age. Okay, May is springtime. It's the middle. It's like, that's you guys right now. You actually are probably a little earlier than that, but your 20s and stuff would be May for you. Me, on the other hand, we're getting to that point where he talks about birds have flown, trees are bare, the day gets shorter. That's that getting to the time we are now in the seasons, this fall and getting closer to winter as you get older. And that's what he's describing there. The wrecks of passion and desire, the castles I no more rebuild, may fitly feed my driftwood fire and warm the hands that age has chilled. Guys, I absolutely love this stanza. It's talking about, all of the wrecks of the things he once cared about, these broken dreams, all of this. Now that the shattered remains of that are what he's using to keep himself warm now in his later days. And I think that's the positive here, that these broken dreams and stuff, they don't have to be a tragedy. They can be like, this is who I am. This is what I wanted. It was great that I had those days of playing in bands when I was younger and enjoyed those times. But now it's about those memories feeding me to get up every day and come to work and be a teacher, which is something else I love, but never was a dream, just for the record. All right. Whatever perished with my ships, I only know the best remains. A song of praises on my lips for losses which are now my gains. And tie this to that last stanza about ones I just love. You can combine these two. He's like, whatever dreams perished, I'm holding on to the positive memories, and those are making me thankful for who I am in my life. This is such a positive poem. It seems like it's not, but I promise you it is. All right, I know there's a lot of this poem left. We got a whole page here, so we're going to try to get to it. I'm sorry, I could talk about this all day. Says, heap high my hearth, no worth is lost, no wisdom with folly dies. Burn on, poor shreds, your holocaust shall be my evening sacrifice. Saying here that, again, just because a dream's over doesn't mean that all of that time is wasted. He's saying that's not the case. Far more than all I dared to dream, unsought before my door, I see, on wings of fire and steeds of steam, the world's great wonders come to me. Now, what he's doing, and this is the part that kind of switches into a different direction, okay? He's talking about, even though I haven't been able to do all these things, I can see, maybe the results of some of my actions leading to bigger things. And not only that, but the world itself, my small place in it, how it's impacted things. And remember, this guy, John Greenleaf Whittier, was a huge abolitionist, did a lot of things. His name's not remembered up there as much as some of these other poets, but a very important guy who did a lot. And now he's seeing like what the world, and it's a positive view of what the world may be in the future, even though he may not be there to see all of this. He says, and holier signs unmarked before of love to seek and power to save, the righting of the wronged and poor, the man evolving from the slave. Now, I love that he included that because that's his big passion in life, was this idea of, and he doesn't just mean slavery here. Understand he's saying man being able to be independent and take care of himself. But it also, I think, is a side-handed thing about the concept of slavery here. He's talking about the world becoming better, and he kind of sees in his dreams as they're burning, he sees what could come later in life. So in life, no longer chance or fate, safe in the gracious fatherhood, I fold o'er wearied hands and wait in full assurance of the good. I mean, this is so positive. He's like, I sit here and waiting for my fire to die down, knowing that there are bigger and better days ahead where great things are going to happen. Says, and well, the waiting time must be, though brief or long its granted days, if faith and hope and charity sit by my evening hearth fire's blaze. And that's just, and he knows the time may be brief or maybe long. This may be talking about death, by the way. I'm not positive here. He references faith, hope, and charity. He capitalizes all three of them, making it personified, like these are actual people sitting around the fire with him. So then with them, friends who heaven has spared, whose love my heart has comforted, and sharing all my joys have shared my tender memories of the dead. So now he's thinking back on, again, all of these great moments from his past, all these people who he's loved. And again, this is a poem about getting old. It may not have the same impact on you at 16 or 17 that it does to me at 42, but trust me, it hits hard at this point in life. It says, dear souls who left us lonely here, bound on their last long voyage, to whom we day by day are drawing near, where every bark has sailing room. Now, this one's talking about actual death. The ones before, when he says friends whom heaven has spared, maybe these are people still alive who are sitting with him, and he's talking about, being with friends and, enjoying these moments he has, because so few are left. And when I say so few, it doesn't mean he's dying in the next week. But, honestly, I'm 42. If I double that, that makes me 84. Guys, I'm not going to live to 84. I realize I'm in the back half of life in some ways. And you think about all those times you've passed, and they're great, fond memories. And you can think of sharing that with people and things with their family members. My mother, you know, I mean, as far as my family goes, my mom's the only one left. But my sister, who's been with me most of my life, having those moments to share and enjoying them. And then he says, I know the solemn monotone of waters calling unto me. I know from whence the airs have blown that whisper to the eternal sea. Now, this is again tied with the last stanza and then the final stanza that we're about to read. This concept of thinking about as the fire dies down is the same thing as your life, as those dreams are fading, and eventually your life will as well. So he says, I know the solemn monotone of waters calling unto me. That's that image of it's time. I know from whence airs have blown that whisper of the eternal sea. And again, that's a reference to heaven. As low my fires of driftwood burn, I hear that sea's deep sounds increase, and fair in sunset light discern its mirage lifted isle of peace. And he's talking about all the fog from these dreams burning as they fade away, and finally all the smoke clears. He sees ahead, and he sees again this reference to heaven, these isles of peace. This is a very calming and tranquil poem. I mean, I've read a lot of beautiful poems. This one would be on my Mount Rushmore right now, beautiful poems. I think it's just lovely. Now, somebody might come back and tell me later, no, this poem's not about that. It's really depressing and blah, blah, blah. And maybe you take it that way. As a 42-year-old who struggles with health and has, worried about going in for a surgery and maybe not coming out, and fights day to day against this concept of, I don't know how much time I have left. I'm going to take it as a positive and a poem of peace, because that's how I feel this is. Now, again, some of you may take it differently. Nobody's saying my interpretation is more valid than yours, but if you've got a different one, you better be able to support it. All right. So, again, I just hope that you enjoyed that. I enjoyed sharing with you one of my favorite poems, my new favorites, for sure. It definitely is, like I said, Mount Rushmore for me of poetry. So anyway, we're going to end there. I've gone almost 20 minutes, and I realize that's a lot for a video. So I will stop there, but I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you like this poem. I hope you revisit it years from now and understand the power that it does contain. I also hope that you notice from this example that I said that you don't have to have someone lead you through a poem. You don't have to rely on other people's interpretations. Look at it yourself, get what you can from it, read it multiple times. After you've read through it and say, okay, I think I get what's going on here. Now reread it with that idea in mind and see if it holds up. And you'll be amazed at the doors it unlocks, and how it gets you to think. And I can't wait to talk about this in class tomorrow, to be honest with you. I love this poem. So, okay, guys, well, let me end here. My son's here. He's ready to go home, I know. So I'm going to go ahead and stop. But I'm looking forward to getting into this with you guys tomorrow. I hope it brings out some really good conversation. So have a great evening, and we will see you soon for our next unit. Actually, this will be the last from this unit. We're about to close out the fireside poets, and including Washington Irving, who's not a fireside poet. And we're about to move into some dark stuff. We're going to read some Nathaniel Hawthorne. We're going to read some Edgar Allan Poe. We're going to get into some really Halloween stuff right here as we come up against that part of the year and into November. So, all right, guys. Well, thank you again for your time, and have a wonderful, wonderful evening.